Okay, so this video is on herpes simplex viruses. There's a number of different ones. There's, I believe, five, but we're going to concentrate on types one and two. Uh, Herpes virus really comes from the Greek, and it means to creep. And what happens with these types of viral infections is they become chronic, recurrent infections. They have latent periods. They're hidden, and then they come out at times of stress. So um, the two common ones are herpes simplex virus 1 and 2. Um, One is cold sores. It's associated with the mouth, and um, two is genital herpes. It's the gift that keeps on giving. The It was thought at one point that they were completely separate things, but they're not so different, and they can be spread from one to the other. Um, so it's it's crazy how many people actually have uh, herpes 1, like the cold sore virus, in them. Estimates are 60 to 80% of North American adults over the age of 12 have it. Your textbook on page 150 talks about it, and it says 70% of Americans older than 12. Um, 20 to 25% have genital herpes. So that's 1 in 4, and that's over the age of 12, is how they define adults. Um, it's a huge number. Uh, so it just shows you how transmittable this is. So what happens here is that the viruses are spread through secretions, respiratory secretions, oral secretions, uh, mucus secretions. Um, yeah, mucosa uh, do it. Uh, when you get the virus, yeah, you've got it. It goes into dormancy and then needs to be triggered. What happens is the virus enters the sensory neurons in the peripheral nervous system. So it enters the sensory nerves, and then it migrates through retrograde transport back to the cell bodies, which are found in the central nervous system. Uh, Peripheral nerves are really collections of neural axons. The cell bodies are all in the central nervous system. And so what happens is that the the virus will end up residing in that cell body, uh, and it will be there forever, for the lifetime, because you can't get rid of the cell body. Now, generally speaking, that primary infection happens in other tissues, and the virus multiplies in the other tissues, and then enters the sensory neuron there. And so that first outbreak. And then the triggers really are something to do with stress. Um, I I do laugh at what they put in this thing that wedding pictures will cause it. That would figure like people would be most worried about cold sores during wedding pictures, but um, and it reminds me of the commercial that for Abrevia uh, that talks about this. Uh, it's a cliche because it's probably true. So anything that's stressful will do it. Excessive sunlight will do it. So a lot of times people will be fine, and then they'll go to the Mayan Riviera for a week, and then they're so pissed off because all of a sudden they've got a cold sore, or they've broken out. They they can also end up in the brain. They can cause a viral meningitis. They can cause um, you know, central nervous system issues. Not very often, but it's possible. So the virus can be stable outside of the host for a little bit, uh, and here's the problem: you can shed the virus through in the secretions before you actually start showing symptoms. Because what's happening is the virus leaves the sensory neuron and starts invading the local tissues. It starts to reproduce, and the the war hasn't started yet. The natural killer cells and the killer T lymphocytes haven't started to kill the tissue that's infected yet, causing the lesion, causing the sore. But the virus is present and is being shed. So we call that the prodrome stage. Oftentimes, what people will feel is a little stinging uh, in their lip or at the site of where the lesion is going to be, and um, you're infectious at that point. Um, so uh, almost everybody uh, has this. If you've had it and been exposed, you probably are already circulating antibodies against it. So what happens is that the fight against it is fairly short lived, but you never fully expel it because it's in the neuron. So you get this little stinging, tingling feeling. Uh, you get this tingling feeling just before you start to get the lesion, the outbreak. You kind of know when it's coming. Um, then the the mucosa or the skin gets attacked and ulcers. So you get a blister, and then a scab will form over it, and that's actually when it's less infectious. It looks the worst and it looks livid, but by that time it's pretty much been dealt with. Like your immune system is probably dealing with all of the viruses that are in the interstitial fluid. Um, Maybe a couple of weeks. Uh, 2 to 3 weeks seems like a long time. I've more prone to think of it as a 10-day sort of thing, but apparently uh, Ruth Werner thinks it's 2 to 3 weeks. I'll go with that. That's a typical looking cold sore. You've all seen them. So the type 1 is oral herpes, cold sores, fever, blisters, usually someplace around the mouth. Uh, the genital herpes, kind of anywhere below the waist. It can be on the buttocks, can be on your thighs, can actually be right up into the low back. And that's something to take note because you will be having clients that have lesions on their low back, and they are somewhat contagious. You have to kind of pay attention and be able to recognize it. There's atypical, and again, it looks like a cold sore. It just happens to be at the in the sacral area. There are other places that you can get it, and they have various names. Herpes Whitlow, I'm going to assume, was named after Dr. Whitlow. Happens when kids have it and they suck their thumbs, or it happens dental hygienists and dental assistants and that kind of thing that may get it into their nail beds. I'm thinking not so much anymore, but I don't know about you guys, but I haven't had a dentist or a dental hygienist work in my mouth without gloves in very many years. So this is one of the reasons. Um, the gladiatorium is on the extremities of wrestlers, athletes, anything with skin to skin contact. Think of gladiators, because what happens is say somebody has a herpes lesion on the small of their back and they're wrestling, and then the next wrestler gets it in the center of their chest from a hole. Um, it can be associated with dermatitis. You can get it in your beard, you know, whatever. This is a picture uh, of it in the nail bed. So, uh, besides it being unsightly and somewhat painful, uh, what it does is it breaks down the primary barriers. The skin and mucosa get breached uh, by these lesions. So a big fear is secondary bacterial infection, uh, or uh, making you more susceptible to viral infections, like things like HIV. Um, in your textbook and in this, it talks about mothers with genital herpes uh, giving it to their newborns uh, as the newborn passes through the birth canal. Um, Now, the problem with it passing through the birth canal is that the virus can infect the baby almost anywhere. If it gets into the eyes and the optic nerve, then can cause blindness. You know, they are much more delicate and susceptible. So it's something to be really aware of. So what did they do? What they try and do is use antiviral drugs, things like fake interferon and that kind of thing, that that suppress the viral activity, suppress the viruses moving into the other cells and replicating. I believe that's what this abreva is about. Um, if you have an outbreak, then it's probably a good idea to not share drinks, not share towels, not share bedding, um, because it can all get infected. This has special note for us with face cradles. Like people have herpes 1, they've got cold sores. You got to make sure that it's one of the reasons that we're adamant about laundering in hot enough water and using bleach for the face cradle covers and for the sheets. Um, if it's genital herpes, avoid sexual contact. I guess actually, if it's oral herpes, avoid that particular type of sexual contact. Um, People that have a lack of stress and generally good health lessen the number of outbreaks. When you think of the fact that 70% of the population, 70 to 80% of the population has uh, oral herpes, uh, and you look around, there's not 70 or 80% of people exhibiting lesions at any given time. Um, Good health really lessens the lesions. Probably the majority of you have this virus and have had cold sores in the past, which means you will get them again in the future. But it may be years between between appearances, because if you maintain a healthy lifestyle, then and you stay fairly low in stress, then it can be an awful long time. Um, Probably a real good idea to uh, contraindicate massage locally around the lesions, if it's in the low back, etc. If the client reports that they think that they're going to be having a herpes, like a cold sore, come out because it's stinging, it said maybe reschedule. My experience has been they don't talk about it before they get on the table. They talk about it well halfway through the massage. You might as well finish at that point. So uh, you're going to isolate and treat your linens no matter what. So that's kind of a moot point. So that's the herpes simplex 1 and 2. On page 150, 151 in your textbook, that's it. We're going to talk about herpes zoster, which is simplex type 3, in the next video. That gives you shingles. They think that mononucleosis is herpes type 4. It's a herpes virus. So there will be one of those. And there's one called cytomegalovirus that's herpes virus type 5. Again, these are all just retroviruses that inhabit the nervous system and therefore are very hard to get rid of.